Okay, hello everyone. Sorry, one second. Okay, so my name is Abby Maxi Resma. Can you turn that down? Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so my name is Abby Maxi Resmer, and as Jamika was saying, last night I actually was very honored to win the Student Award for Social Justice and Inclusion. And my org, UNA Women, United Nations Association Women, also won 2 awards, which was also social justice and inclusion as a group, as well as best new program. And forgive me, I am a little sick. I have a sinus infection, so sometimes I'll need to mute just so I don't cough in your guys' ear. So that being said, for our last session before we close the program with the Women's Center Program Coordinator Jamika Jones, we will focus on the intersectionalities between climate justice, gender equity, and other social justice issues, featuring community and student activists who are involved in fighting climate change and uplifting gender equity. So I am so honored to present Eboni Cochran, co-director of Rubbertown Emergency Action, also known as REACT, and who will present Danger, a virtual tour of sites of concern and how climate change exuberates impacts, and who will then be joined with a panel featuring student activists on the front line. So Eboni, I will give it to you.
Thank you so much for that introduction and congratulations for your award. Again, my name is Eboni Cochran. I'm with REACT, Rubbertown Emergency Action. We are a group of residents who live near or at the fence line of the corporate chemical facility commonly referred to as Rubbertown. And I'm just waiting a second for my slides to come up. I think we're almost there. You know how technology is. Alright, you can change to the next slide.
Hey, Ebony, your audio is being a little pitchy. I don't know if it's... Are other folks hearing pitchiness right now? Is it just me?
It's not just you, Ebony. It sounds like Chipmunk, Mickey Mouse. I'm wondering if you could join us on your phone. Sometimes on your phone has a better, and maybe Jamika, you think you might get the slide? Thank you, everyone.
Hey, Ebony, try talking again, because I know sometimes when other folks, see if it works now. Oh. Yeah, you sound like Simon from the Chipmunks. We appreciate everyone's patience. I'm not. Good old technology today. I'd say I love these things in the chat. Someone was thinking Donald Duck. So was it they had some helium for lunch today? Hey, Ebony, try logging out and logging back in. Sometimes Teams wants to be complicated, and see if that may or may not help. And again, we appreciate y'all's patience today and glad to have you guys rejoining us or joining us if you're coming just for this session. So we will try this again. Let's see.
Okay, you all, what's the verdict?
Yes. Okay.
Oh,
Awesome.
jeez. I'll try to make this short since we kind of got out of control here. But again, all right, next slide for whomever is, yeah. So REACT is a grassroots organization, as I described before. It was initially a campaign of the Justice Resource Center, led by the late Reverend Louis Coleman Jr., and it was initiated back in March of 2003. And you can go to the next slide. I'm going to take you through a tour of some of the hot spots in Louisville that have impacts environmentally on residents living nearby. The first one is Advanced Ready Mix, which is a proposed site for a concrete company. And just to show you how close it is, I know these maps are hard to see, but the proposed site is here. I hope you can see my mouse there. And then over to your left, you see this green space. That is the student athletic field for Spalding University. And then you have a cluster of residents that live in College Court. Then you have Simmons College of Community. And then over to the right, you have St. Stephen Church. And so this proposed concrete plant is going to impact a largely Black community of College Court, the Limerick neighborhood, students utilizing the Spalding University athletic campus. And there are a lot of ugly impacts like particulate matter, asthma attacks, heart attacks, and all sorts of respiratory tract cancers. And so this company has already been cited for violations at another one of their locations here in Louisville. In 2020, the Air Pollution Control District observed particles coming from their property, leaving their property. And one of the ways in which APCD, which is the Air Pollution Control District, the regulatory agency, they've played a role in the company not changing its behavior, is that they assess low fines and they also offer discounts on fines. And so you'll see that with a lot of these violations that go out, the companies are really not paying fines proportionate to the revenue that they bring in. Next slide. Guess what? I forgot to put the picture, but let's just imagine this big, dark, menacing Title V chemical facility that impacts Park Hill neighborhood, the California neighborhood, and I suspect probably Limerick as well. The types of impacts include a chemical of concern is hexane. You know what? It's not hexane, but it's a chromium. I apologize for that. Which according to the National Institutes of Health is shown to cause lung cancer, kidney, liver damage, nasal, skin irritation, ulceration, eye irritation, and damage. It can also be found in soil and drinking water. In March of 2023, the Air Pollution Control District approved a permit knowing that it would increase the risk of cancer. And so this is something that the Air Pollution Control District has done more than once. So as we go through this slide, you'll see that not only are the facilities and industries responsible for some of the illnesses that we have in our community, but in my humble opinion, I believe that the regulatory agencies tend to be seemingly complicit because they're allowing these permits knowing that our chances of cancer risk increase. Let's go to slide 3, to the next slide. Okay, so this is, the next site is Hudson Middle School, which is named in honor, of course, of J. Blaine Hudson, former Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, and someone whom we love and treasure in this community. He was very connected to community. This is at the former site of Wheatley Elementary. And Wheatley Elementary, according to materials research, back in during a 2018 study, those students were exposed to 3 times the national average amount of toxic chemicals in the air, mostly coming from Clarion West. which I talked about a bit before. So think about it. If this school is adversely affected by Clarion, so are the California Community Center, the California Park, and residents who live nearby. Next slide. This slide depicts a picture of Heaven Hill Distillery. Folks impacted by this distillery are residents and visitors at the California neighborhood, elementary schools that are nearby, and visitors to the YMCA. Heaven Hill is allowed to dump part of their waste product into the sewer, which produces a terrible odor when it comes into contact with other materials. So this odor travels a long way from Heaven Hill and can prominently be detected far down Broadway as it travels toward the wastewater treatment plant. One of the other issues outside of odors is the whiskey fungus. And so the whiskey fungus is a black substance, also referred to as angel share. It attaches to nearby homes and vehicles. One would think there's a possibility that it could be inhaled, but we have not been able to find any information about how it might affect human health. In this picture I took in the parking lot of the YMCA on a night where it really had a foul odor. Next. The next site is Anderson Wood, one of the nation's largest manufacturers of solid hardwood furniture and stair components. They are located in the Parkland neighborhood. They impact Maupin Elementary School, Parkland residents and residents of Family Scholar House, churches that are nearby. There's an NAACP office nearby. There are small businesses nearby. And so some of those impacts are the intense odors of burning wood, particulate matter, and dust, which can get lodged in your lungs. There have been fires at the facility, and wood dust is associated with cancer. And so I took this photo in the parking lot of Maupin Elementary School. So this is how close, this is the furthest part of Maupin. But this is how close that smoke is to the school. And so REACT recently began meeting with residents about their concerns and how we might aid in their advocacy related to Anderson Wood. They complained of wood dust all over their homes and cars, the smell of burning wood, fires in the silos several times a year, and black smoke among other things. Just yesterday, I took a couple of folks by to see the facility, and all of a sudden, this wood dust just started raining down on us. Like literally, there was wood dust and wood chips hitting me on my face, got some in my eyes. And so all of that was blowing across the street from that facility, and that is not safe. And if you know anything about wood dust, you know that it is considered a human carcinogen, and there are also impacts beyond that. Next slide.
And this is a long session. Yay.
I can shorten it if you need me to, but I'll try to go faster as well. So
Ebony, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
You're doing an amazing job. I think somebody just popped on and they didn't
okay.
mute themselves. You're doing a wonderful job.
All right, thanks. So the next one site is the Villages of Park Duval. This is a mixed income subdivision that completed being developed in 1998. So all of these houses and people living in this neighborhood are impacted by chemicals coming from Rubbertown chemical facilities. They are affected by rail cars that are in that neighborhood. So they have exposure to the chemicals, odors from Rubbertown, odors from the sewers, particulate matter. And so in recent years, the Air Pollution Control District has been blaming all odors on the sewer system. I'm sure all of you have seen the news accounts of that. And so they've told us that hydrogen sulfide is the gas of concern, and they've told us that it smells like rotten eggs. But the odors that are being smelled by residents in this neighborhood and other neighborhoods don't always smell like rotten eggs. And so we still have yet to get a very clear and concise answer from the Air Pollution Control District on how they differentiate odors coming from the sewer versus odors coming from the chemical facilities, because they've been telling lots of residents who call, oh, it's just the sewer, which makes it seem like less of an emergency, which it is not. Next slide. So this next slide is a picture I took right outside of John F. Kennedy Elementary School. In the background, you will see hydrochloric, a couple of those are hydrochloric acid tanks, if I'm remembering correctly. But those are commonly parked on that rail line, along with 1,3-butadiene, which is an explosive hazard associated with cancer and heart disease and all of these things. I remember one time my co-director and I heard that there was a derailment on this same rail line a little bit further down. So a lot of times when things like this happen, we try to, ride around to see what people know. And so there was a teacher out there who had her students in the garden. She had no idea that right up maybe half a mile to a mile away was a train derailment. And so that makes me wonder whether or not these schools have created any shelter in place drills or evacuation drills for schools that are in close proximity to industry. So that's something we'll be inquiring about as well. Next slide. So this is what some people call an open waste pool. That's this right here. Around it are some of the chemical facilities. And I'm not going to say too much about this because I'm still trying to figure out more about it, but I'm flagging it because it's a site of concern. And one has to wonder whether or not some of the chemicals in these pools drain into the Ohio River, seep into the soil. And we also need to know whether or not these pools have the potential to overflow as climate worsens. My understanding is that the pools are holding byproduct from chemical processes at the chemical facilities. So stay tuned for that as we try to learn more about how this hazard, because if you look like all in this space, all around here are residences. So if that were to overflow or breach any sort of liners, it would be a true hazard. Next slide. This photo is of the Metropolitan Sewer District, which is the largest wastewater treatment plant in Jefferson County. So it impacts Chickasaw neighborhood, Algonquin neighborhood, Park Duval, and others, I'm sure. So the impacts are odors, chemical leaks from tanks, chemical leaks from pipes. Several years ago, there was a pipe that burst. It was carrying a chemical called ethyl acrylate, and it was carrying it from a Rubbertown chemical facility to this wastewater treatment plant. And so the intense odor, at my home, I don't get odors on a regular basis, but with this spill, the odor was so intense that it came through our windows at night and it was in our vehicles for over a week. And so there are some hazards as it relates to the wastewater treatment plants. You can go to the next slide. That's my son when he was younger. Isn't he cute? Okay, sorry. So this next site is Chickasaw Park, which is impacted by so many things. So it's impacted by the wastewater treatment plant. It's impacted by chemicals from Rubbertown. And it's also the lake had been tested years ago, and that's what this sign is referring to that says warning. Dioxin was found in both the soil and in the fish. And so they've begun doing some renovating work in the park. And during the planning stage, I was on the advisory committee. They talked about dredging the pond or lake or whatever you want to call it. But what they wanted to do after they dredged the pond was use the sediment. Remember, I said the sediment had dioxin in it. They wanted to use that in different areas of the park. At that time, I said, I do not agree with this. And they said that the dioxin they've retested it and it had degraded. But in my opinion, when you have a substance that lots of people refer to as one of the most toxic substances on earth, even a little bit of that, you shouldn't be sprinkling around a park where you have families and children, other vulnerable people, and even healthy people. And so if you ride through Chickasaw Park now, you'll see that the landscape has changed a bit. And that's because they used that soil that was tainted from that lake, and they have spread it all around Chickasaw Park. And so I was in a meeting the other day where they had talked about not stocking the lake again until they've retested it. And then that made me believe you guys just spread all of this stuff all over the park. Are you going to test that? So there's a lot of research we need to do on that, because I'm very concerned about that soil being just open right there for our children to roll around and play in. Next slide. The next slide is of the Gallagher plant. These aren't the best photos, but these are the smokestacks from a power plant that is actually in Indiana. You can see that the types of impacts include particulate matter, mercury, carbon dioxide, and all these other things that are not healthy for us. One day I was driving down the street, saw this very unique cloud, and I was like, oh, that is so unique. Ended up, it was a cloud that was coming straight from the Gallagher plant to West Louisville. And so even, West Louisville is getting impacts from other states as well. And you can go to the next slide. And so this slide, I showed this slide to somebody and they were like, oh my gosh, there's so much going on. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And then I thought later, you know why we did it this way? It's because when you talk about the impacts of climate change, it is all over the place. It is chaotic, and it's going to be chaotic the worse that it gets. Next slide. I don't want to put you through looking through that chaotic slide too much. But how climate change could exacerbate impacts locally? Of course, we know it increases extreme heat, it increases bad air days, it increases in extreme weather. Next slide. I wanted to talk just briefly about how climate change uniquely exacerbates impacts near industries like Rubbertown. And so when you have things like flooding, which we're going to see more of, and which we have seen more of, that flooding can cause system failures, which could lead to excess emissions and exposures. It can cause chemicals to travel outside of the chemical facility to neighboring areas. It can make handling medical emergencies very challenging for first responders. You have power outages. With power outages, chemical facilities typically will revert to their backup systems, but their backup systems are typically inferior to the primary, meaning that you're going to get excess emissions and more exposures to more chemicals. There's also backup systems that fail. I remember several years ago, Xeon Chemicals, there was a power outage. They went to their backup generator, but their generator was faulty. And what occurred was a hydrochloric acid spill. And because you can't spray water on hydrochloric acid to get rid of it, it was just a cloud hovering over the neighborhood. And so when you think about tornadoes, when you think about anything that is going to compromise power, you've got to be thinking about the chemical facilities, because it's not just, oh, my power's out, it's so hot in my house. It's my power's out. Do we need to evacuate? Do we hear any alarms? Are they going to tell us that we need to evacuate? So there's all those things that are going on. Next slide. How REACT has advocated locally. We've done protests, we've packed hearing rooms. We've gotten cheered on by our family. They didn't attend, but they sure did put on those shirts and cheer me on. We've done bucket brigade samples, which are the community can do their own air samples. We've recently started doing disaster backpack giveaways, because in this city, emergency preparedness is an afterthought. This city has not done enough to even begin to try to protect our communities in West Louisville and in Southwest Louisville in the event of an explosion or something catastrophic at one of the chemical facilities. We haven't heard a thing about emergency preparedness, and this is not right. And so what we're trying to do is at least provide as many families as we can with a backpack with a starter kit to get in their minds that they need to be taking care of themselves, because no one is coming to save us. This city it's just pitiful. Next slide. So REACT also does work on the national level. We are we are affiliates of other organizations. We are in communication all the time with other organizations who have residents who live at the fence line, and so of chemical industries all around this country. And so that enables us to share information, get information from them on how they're dealing with things that helps with what we're doing. We've worked on different national campaigns. We're in meetings with the EPA on a regular basis, you know, begging them to do what they're supposed to be doing. And then we also travel to support other fence line residents. Next slide. And so I'm ending with this slide that says, if your children couldn't breathe, your parents were sick, your neighbors had cancer, your neighborhood smelled of chemicals, you would be angry too. And the reason I am ending with this is because one of the things that is so troubling about this fight for environmental justice is just how much not only the industry, but the city and decision makers really put the messaging out that, you know, people fighting for environmental justice, they are agitators, they are going to come in here and protest, that which we should be able to come in there and protest, we should be angry, we should be shouting. And so they put out all this negative messaging to try to demonize us. And so I think this sign is wonderful. This man holding the sign is Roosevelt Roberts. He was a member of REACT, and he literally died. He literally died for everybody listening here, for all the people in West Louisville, for all the people in Southwest Louisville who have been advocating for environmental justice. We were in a, what do you call it? We were in a forum. Dr. Adewale Troutman was here in Louisville at the time. He was on the stage. Mr. Roberts, he was in the audience, like pointing his finger and talking about how awful things were and what should be done. And then he all of a sudden collapsed. It was horrible. Dr. Troutman jumped off the stage, literally jumped off like a superhero, tried to, you know, get him together until the ambulance came. But unfortunately, he passed away. When we say that our ancestors literally fought and died for us, this man literally fought and died for us. And so my hope is that everyone listening to this will get more involved, will start doing their own research, because we've got to be consistent and persistent, because the powers that be, the people who are supposed to be protecting us, they are not. They are looking the other way. And so thank you so much. I hope I didn't take up too much time, and that is it. You can check us out on Facebook.
Woo!
But thank you so much, Ebony. You truly, I was looking at Jamaica and I was like, this is amazing. It's seeing such work we have locally. So we're now going transitioning into our panel discussion. So let me introduce our speakers, and if the speakers would like to have their cameras on, it's totally up to you. But we have Savannah Duell, or Savannah, how do you say your last name?
Dowell.
Dowell, okay. She is a university student and U of L sustainability intern. We have Taylor Martin, a grassroots organizer with the Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, and a University of Louisville political science graduate student currently. We have Elizabeth Hinsdale, president of Disabled Cards United and Women for Women Student Board, and of course me, I will be the moderator. My name is Abby Maxey Resler. I'm the president of UNA Women, or the United Nations Association Women at U of L. Okay, so I know I kind of just basically said names and everything, but if our speakers would like to kind of introduce like what you do and your share of like gender equity and or climate change work that you have done or currently doing.
I don't mind to go first. My name is Savannah. Yeah, as far as like climate justice work that I've done and been doing, when I was in high school, I was the state outreach director for an organization called Kentucky Youth Climate Strike, which was a national chapter of the National United States Youth Climate Strike. We did lots of communal learning stuff. I led a lot of workshops on different environmental topics. And we did direct actions as well, and sometimes worked with political candidates. Right now, I'm an intern with U of L Sustainability. I run our community gardens. We have two of them here at U of L. We have our Urban and Public Affairs Horticulture Zone and our Garden and Commons. And there I really teach about concepts of food justice and sovereignty, organic urban agriculture, and sustainable food systems. So that's really where the bulk of my climate justice work lies.
I can go next. Hi, my name is Taylor Martin, and I use she, her pronouns. In terms of gender equity, for the last 9 years, I've mentored numerous girls in my community, tutoring, supporting, and empowering them to reach their personal and academic goals. And I believe in the power of mentoring as it helps both parties involved develop leadership and interpersonal skills. And in terms of climate justice, this past fall, I worked with Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, directly registering and engaging voters while advocating for climate justice by circulating petitions, inviting constituents into the conversation, and sharing information on public hearings to invest in emission-free renewable energy.
Okay, I am Elizabeth Hinsdale. My pronouns are they, she. I've done more gender equity work than climate justice work, but this, I guess, past student government election cycle, I met with some of the candidates for services vice president chair, and a lot of them had sustainability concerns. And so we walked through a variety of ways in which they could focus on sustainability and environmental friendly policies that actually also weren't harmful to disabled students on campus, because a lot of the really quick suggestions are things like no plastic straws or things that like directly prohibit people with excess needs like being able to eat and feed themselves. And so that was really great. And so we're feeling pretty good about some of the things we shared with the student government. And then with gender equity, I've done a lot of reproductive healthcare organizing. Last year, I gave a presentation at the Women's Center on reproductive freedom. We've done a lot of kind of generalized work with Women for Women, touching on career things, educating on different intersections of identity, and trying to navigate the workplace and find solidarity with other people. And then within Disabled Cards United, we've been trying to build up education about disability justice and how that needs to be included in conversations about the environment, sexuality, race, and gender issues as well on campus.
All right, thank you all so much. And for the audience, make sure if you have a question, please put it in the chat. I'm monitoring that. But for right now, I do have a couple questions I'd love for our panel to kind of discuss. First is, how do you define environmental justice and gender equity, and where do you see the need for it?
I can go. So I define it through an intersectional lens that explicitly recognizes the historical context of the reinforcing multiple oppressive structures that intersect to control and dominate marginalized individuals and communities. I see gender equity and environmental justice as the nexus of intersecting socio-environmental problems. And I think an issue that needs to be improved is intersectionality needs to be systematically applied in the context of environmental justice.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that you brought up the concept of intersectionality. And I think that climate change or climate justice really emerged as this intersectional movement to combat climate change. And environmental justice, same deal. It recognizes that environmental degradation and climate injustices, they don't treat everyone the same. There are people and there are groups out there who are specifically impacted based on their identities. And so bringing the principles of intersectionality to our conversations about the climate is incredibly important. And so I also think that environmental justice includes, is this like really broad topic that includes racial justice, gender equity, and all of these great things. If we can bring as many lenses to the table as we can, then we can really get this full picture of environmental injustices and what we can do to combat them.
For me, I think I'm going to kind of go back to my biggest kind of, I guess, desire right now is making sure that we try to keep disability in the conversation and also do so in a way that doesn't become ableist itself. So on one hand, I kind of touched on like environmentalism and accessibility are not mutually exclusive, but a lot of the like more trendy like policies do carry a lot of harm. And like that's just not necessary. And that comes from not including disabled people in your conversations or focusing on like the systemic root causes of environmental degradation. Again, like if you go back to plastic straws, like people using those to be able to drink because they might be paralyzed is a lot different than like mega oil companies like consciously and deliberately polluting the environment for decades and decades, even knowing that they were doing so at a great cost. On the other hand, I actually just read through Black Disability Politics by Sammy Schalk. And one of the things that she kind of talks about as she goes through these different movements that weren't disability focused in nature, but dealt with disability issues, like organizing Black maternal health needs relating to AIDS, is that we should be talking about prevention, we should be talking about care, but we don't need to do so in a way that also makes it seem like becoming disabled is a lost cause, or that it's like the end of the world, or like remembering that we talk about it in a way that carries a moral value. And by continuing to project that, you're only combating one of the issues. Like, even if we eliminated all of these systemic and environmentally connected factors that disproportionately impact low income Black and Brown communities, people will still be disabled. And we still need to have systems of care for them. That doesn't mean we want to continue creating environments that we know harm people, though.
So, Ebony, what are your thoughts on it too?
I'm going to yield to the other three panelists because I think they covered everything. I love the way that disability was brought into that discussion as well. But I mean, I think they covered everything very well.
All right, thank you guys so much. So my next question is, how does climate change disproportionately impact oppressed communities, and what are the implications for equity and social justice?
I don't mind to go first. I can talk about climate change specifically within the context of our United States food systems, because that's something that I'm really into. We're seeing already that the effects of climate change, like these extreme droughts out in California, fires, and extreme flooding, can further exacerbate food injustices. Because if you're already struggling to get food, if you live in a food desert or are affected by food apartheid, you're it's going to be just that much harder to have access to healthy and nutritious food. So I think that people who struggle with food apartheid are often located in Black and Brown communities, in communities that are poor, and there's just been little effort at all to help these communities, to build the grocery stores, to build the food networks that people need. And so, yeah, I think that is a very obvious connection that we can draw between climate change and people who struggle with food insecurity.
I think also one of the things that I haven't heard too many people talking about is insurance and insurance rates. As we all know, down in Florida, there have been some insurance companies who have totally left that market. And when you think about how people often talk about redlining as if it's historical, but it's still going on. And so people are scared to file claims because they know that not only there's a possibility that their insurance rates will increase, but there's a possibility that their insurance will be canceled. And so that's going to increase the likelihood of homelessness, of loss of any sort of wealth. That house and real estate may be the only source of wealth that you have. So transferring that wealth to the next generation could become obsolete. Because you've lost your house in a fire and you had been, dropped from your insurance. So I think that's one other way that this could affect folks.
I had also been thinking kind of healthcare access. We know a lot of the communities that are most impacted by environmental health issues are ones that also exist in places where either the healthcare you have access to isn't very good, or like isn't actually very present, or is wildly expensive. Or if you live in more rural or more isolated areas, the healthcare system has just been deliberately stripped out of the place that you live in. And so the result is that not only do you have these health issues, which you may not have otherwise had, and that your community was kind of directly targeted in who would be impacted by the environmental fallout and these pollution and all these things, but then that you can't go get the health care that would be needed to fix that, even if you had the money to do so. Like, it's physically not there. The infrastructure for accessing it, it doesn't exist. And thinking on a more kind of global level, a lot of the places that are more immediately being impacted by like literal physical changes in your environment through extreme erosion or complete drought, are places that have also had all of their resources stripped out from them and are historically deliberately underinvested in. And so that now that we're talking about all these issues, or we say, why don't these people in these other countries cut down on their carbon emissions, or just simply move or do something else that we would do here in the United States, like the things that they need to do that don't exist because of imperialism and colonialism.
Yeah, I really appreciated all the responses of the other panelists. So I guess building off of their point, I think it's really important to once again apply that intersectional lens to be able to see the connections between all these problems so that way we're able to act accordingly. Because climate change disproportionately impacts these oppressed communities, and we need to be able to recognize all the symptoms of it. Well, not recognize all the symptoms, but we need to understand the complexity of it in order to move forward.
Right, thank you all. And so this question I kind of have, since obviously all of you have had quite a lot of experience through grassroots activism, community organizing, collective action. So what are some strategies that maybe people in the audience who don't have a lot of that experience to empower like maybe their local communities, their neighboring communities when it comes to climate decision-making processes?
I'll go first for this one. So intersectional environmentalism is about empowering people to be the drivers of the movement. So I think the best strategy is to provide our community with the resources to lead. So organizations like REACT or Kentuckians for the Commonwealth are diligently working to achieve climate justice through grassroots activism, community organizing, and collective action. And it can be intimidating to do this work on your own. So that's why I think it's important to have organizations behind you, encouraging you every step of the way.
I think also it's important for people to acknowledge and recognize the expertise that lives in impacted communities. A lot of times the city will come up with this brilliant plan of theirs, and then they'll shop it around to community members asking you to come to a stakeholders meeting to rubber stamp what they've come up with, and what they've come up with have too many holes in them. They're not protective enough. And so when you don't tap into the expertise of the people who are directly impacted, you are not going to be effective at all. I think also we need to stop telling people to vote and it'll change. I'm not saying don't vote, so don't say that. What I'm saying is if we make it more issue oriented, then people may see the connection between their issue and how a vote might impact it. I think also we need to start having summer camps that deal with teaching our middle and high schoolers how to engage in this sort of work. We need to train them up because there's a certain percentage who may go into politics or other areas that might benefit the work. And we need those kind of people in there, because once we have that connection with them, once they get into that arena, we can kind of tug on them when they're going the opposite way of what we sent them there to do. And so there are a myriad of things that we need to do, but those are just a few that come to mind for me.
Completely and totally agreed. I think it's like, I completely agree with the assertion that like we really need to reconsider telling people to just vote as a cure all for everything that people are experiencing. Because our governments and our policymakers have completely failed us like time and time again. And I think that's what makes grassroots organizing and collective action so powerful. Also, it puts the hands back into the people and it shows that like we're out here and we're ready to play. And so, yes, completely agree that like knowledge is power. And so when we teach people about the problems that are out there, and we teach people, this is how you can do a direct action. This is how you can directly combat this specific thing that's happening in your community that is really harmful to the people out there. I think that really also just building community with the people around you. There are people, so many people are involved in initiatives like what have been showcased here today. Um, Build community with people, talk about issues with people, and don't stop learning.
Okay, I guess I can go ahead and add a couple of things. One thing that I see really for kind of any issue is the big kind of hang up between being really fatalist about how like actually the root of all of our problems are systemic issues that we cannot effectually solve as an individual versus thinking that like if you simply just make perfect like economic choices that magically these issues will cease to exist, and trying to like get people to land in the middle ground, like you can be a responsible consumer and purchase things that have a less negative impact, while also like not having a deep personal crisis of self every time you go to the grocery store because you can't genuinely prove where all of your fruit came from and know if it was harvested ethically. And that throwing yourself between these two ends like isn't really conductive for any kind of success in this work. And that you can working on just trying to hold yourself accountable or explaining your thought process for things within your own community is really helpful. Like right now one of my younger siblings is asking all these questions about things that he thinks are good choices or things that he isn't really sure why people have negative feelings about them, and he wants to know. And so what we've been practicing is being like, I'm making this decision because I think it will have a good impact for these reasons, or I like don't always remember to bring usable bags to the grocery store, so I still take plastic bags home, and then I find X, Y, and Z other ways to reuse them instead of just giving up and being like, well, now I just have all this plastic and I'll never make something work out in life. And being really transparent about that thought process can be really helpful for teaching everybody, but it can also be really helpful for people who are neurodivergent or have intellectual disabilities, because a lot of times, like, we just talk over people and expect them to catch up without providing any kind of nuance or explanation.
Okay. So, and Savannah, I really loved what you said about like we are constant learners. That is definitely something I feel like in my experience with doing work as well, like grassroots activism, you never stop learning. And that's something I think is kind of beautiful when it comes to like being in this space and everything. Um, so speaking of learning, I wanted to ask, what are some lessons that you've learned while doing this work?
I think a few of the lessons I've learned. One, shucks, sorry. One is that this work is my job is to push this work further than the people's shoulders that I'm standing on that pushed it toward me. Okay, I said that all wrong, but you know what I mean. The people before me pushed this work this far. My job is to not think, oh, let's get this done in 20 years. I have to understand that this is a lifelong struggle, that what my job to do is strengthen it, the foundations, and push it to the next generation. That's one thing. Another thing is that you should always be data driven. And so whether that data is through some numbers on a spreadsheet or lived experiences, you should be data driven. Early on, we found that when we were talking to decision makers and telling them all of our testimonies, I mean, really bad things that had happened in our community with our people's health, crying in front of them, they just zoned out. They find a way to put that emotional barrier up. Thirdly, and I'll end it with this one, is that you must have integrity. These problems are so bad, you don't have to participate in hyperbole. You do not have to exaggerate a thing. Never ever say something that you don't fully understand unless you clarify what you're trying to say. But definitely always move with integrity, because not only can the chemical industry discount you, but then you lose the trust of community. And the thing you don't want to lose trust of is community.
Okay, I guess I'll go. So some of my biggest things are kind of on integrity, like being true to yourself. Like the most effective thing is speaking from your own experiences, and like that's the way to build relationships with people. Some of my like biggest, I think, obstacles or like downfalls in my organizing journey has been trying to be a version of myself that I am not. Like if people do not want to work with the authentic version of you and understand how your background has shaped who you are, then they're not really invested in community work. They're invested in a certain kind of participation and kind of like refined public appearance. The other is also kind of like being very self reflexive, like thinking about your own actions, thinking how you can improve, and also thinking about ways in which like you can constantly be bringing people into the conversation who are not there. Like I can speak on things that I've noticed about the way that we explain like personal advocacy choices and how that's impacted people in my life who have intellectual disabilities. But at the end of the day, like I can't say that I'm the final authority on that. And I need to remember to like keep having those conversations with those people in my life and continue trying to uplift them and empower them and invite them into these spaces so that they are also able to share their own personal stories. And then the third is being sure that you have a strong community outside of the people that you work with. Not that you can't be like great friends and comrades, but that you have to have other people to fall back on who have an outside perspective when you hit like difficulties. Like it's really, really hard to reflect on things and figure out who might be in the wrong somewhere, if anybody is, if you're all caught up in the situation and you're just the people who've been working on this day in and day out and are tired from all that you have to give as we try to continue to build these movements and pass them on to the future.
Taylor, do you want to? Oh, sorry, you go ahead, Taylor.
Okay. Something that I've learned while doing this work is it can kind of be disappointing and frustrating because change is slow. So I like to keep in mind the bigger picture and my long-term goals, kind of like what Ebony was saying, how it's like a lifelong work. But however, in terms of global warming, we don't have time to wait for change. It's a pretty pressing issue. So we need to push our representatives to act now. And so voting's only one tool in the toolbox. There's protesting, lobbying, canvassing, running for office, talking with friends and family, inviting other people into the movement. And I also just think about in my American government seminar class right now, we viewed public opinion. This was specifically for gay marriage over the course of 20 years. And it has completely switched because people were doing that grassroots organizing, like meeting with people and encouraging them to, kind of change their perspective. And so it kind of gives me hope thinking that grassroots organizing will be the way to change by relying on your community and doing the hard work.
I completely agree with everything that's already been said. The only things I have to add are like lessons, like stuff that I've learned, like some of the things, like the tangible things, like how to draft press releases, how to plan direct actions, how to position protesters for powerful imagery, how to mobilize people. That stuff like is so overwhelming at the beginning, but like it just comes naturally with experience. Once you get into the work, all of a sudden you're just in it, and you have so many amazing people here with you who are willing to help every step of the way. Another thing I would learned is that just how amazing people are. Like I sometimes I think it's so easy to like lose hope for any like side of a just future. And then I see like different community organizers in our city and I'm like, wow, like that person is so admirable. They are what I want for the future. They are so amazing and I want to be like them when I grow up. And so I think just like remembering that there are some like awesome, really cool people out there who are doing this groundwork is really essential to hold on to the vision. Because when you lose sight of the mission, it's so easy to get bogged down in this world of pessimism. But when you can see how amazing that some folks are, and how involved in the work they are, yeah, it just makes you feel a lot better about the hope for the future.
I love it all. Thank you all. So unfortunately, we do have to wrap up. So I'm going to kind of do a 2-in-1 question, just because I think it's very important. Especially, I just love these questions. I'm not gonna lie. So it says, who or what inspired you to get into this work? And then the other question is, how do you integrate self-care, which could be like liberatory pleasure practices or radical joy while you're doing this work?
All right, real quick, who inspired me? First and foremost, my mother and my father. They taught me from a very young age that I have a right to fight for myself and for my community and for my family. They also taught me that I have an obligation to fight for my community, which is something that not too many people believe, but I believe it to be true. The last group of people that have inspired me to do this work are my ancestors. Some of my ancestors were enslaved, and every time I get discouraged about this work, if there's an obvious big loss or something like that, I might cry for a day, but then I have to think about what my ancestors went through. They kept going even though they were literally in a living hell, but they continued the work, and they continued it knowing that they may not be free, but they continued the work, and that hard work over all of those generations has gotten me to where I am now. And so I will always remember and honor my ancestors for that. And for that reason, I'm going to do the work so that future generations live a better life. Oh, Lord, I'm talking long again. Sorry.
You are fine. Someone just unmuted themselves.
Okay, so I'll go. My answer to this question, I don't like to say like inspired because it's not something that's necessarily inspirational. But I like very distinctly remember being like 10 years old. My parents had just gotten divorced. I have to get myself up for school every day. And the disparities I noticed between watching the news in the morning when my dad was not up and in charge of the television and what I saw at my mom's house versus the television and the news reporting that my father preferred to watch, and the way that Trayvon Martin's murder was covered, because I knew even at like 10 that I very strongly felt that was not something that would have happened to me in my kind of rural, like white community, and that I couldn't comprehend why it was being covered so differently and why what felt like the least bad coverage of it seemed very insufficient. Like, I was like, he's just a kid. Like, he's older than me, but he's just a kid. And every step of the way from 10 to now, where I have been trying to keep learning and keep educating myself and going to find ways to be involved in my community, I come back to that kid that's like watching the news and is confused while she's waiting for the bus because something about this seems very deeply wrong, but she doesn't have the tools or the vocabulary to understand it. And then my other answer would be, I come from like a Southern community, and to me, that always meant taking care of each other and being very interconnected. And even though I feel like that's something that's lost or like isn't utilized the best way, to me, that's what guides me. And remembering that like you are connected to each other and like that's who you have to lean on at the end of the day. And then for kind of radical joy, I like to build Lego and I like to bake. I like to remember that I am a whole person and I have my own interests and that I need to feel joy.
Okay. So I have always been interested in social change and working in the government, but what really changed and made me pivot towards grassroots organizing in Kentucky were two classes I had my senior year of undergrad with Dr. Sherry Dawson Edwards. She's in the social change program. I took restorative justice and intersectional environmentalism with her. And that was also where I first learned about Kentuckians for the Commonwealth. And so those two classes really connected a lot of the dots for me. And it also helped me realize that I don't need to leave the state to make real impact. Kentucky needs us just as bad. So that was really what changed my path in life. And then what I choose to do for self-care is I really enjoy practicing mindfulness. So this could be yoga, listening to music, or going on a walk in the park. But overall, that's what I do.
I think the moment for me where I like really can point back to where I wanted to get involved in grassroots organizing was after I attended the Kentucky teacher strike with my dad and stepmom when I was 13 years old. My dad and stepmom, they both work in public education. My dad in Davis County, my stepmom in Henderson County. And I was 13. It was a spring day, but it was so cold. I remember this. I remember this so distinctly. It was frigid. And I'll never forget this act of kindness where this elderly retired teacher had given me an extra pair of gloves she had. And that was just a really beautiful moment to me where, all of these people, all of these public employees really came together to fight against the bullshit that was going on at the Kentucky Capitol. So I think that's really the moment that inspired me. Like, I have the potential to make the world around me better. And then as far as the self-care question, I definitely need to get better at it. I'm not gonna lie. Especially this past legislative session, it was kind of bad. But I really do like my houseplants. I like to garden, like I said earlier. Gardening is so fun. And I also like to crochet, even though I'm bad at it. And oh my gosh, nothing beats a hot bath. Let me tell y'all, a hot bath with some Epsom salts, it cures all your problems. Just like taking steps to remember, like Elizabeth said, that you are a person and you deserve happiness and joy. And sometimes you have to like take a step back and protect your peace just a little bit before you throw yourself back into the work at full force. So yeah.
Right. Thank you all so much. This does conclude the panel. If everyone could just do the little digital round of applause with the react button for our amazing panelists. And now I'm going to give it to Jamika to close out for this amazing inaugural conference. Thank you.
And again, thank you all so much for being here with us, and for those that were here the entire day. Like, you are a trooper and so appreciated. But again, I always have to give a shout out, especially to the students who participated today as our speakers, facilitators. I mean, they got some things to say, and quite frankly, we need to listen to them a bit more than I think the credit we give them to. And of course, all of our amazing presenters, some from locally, some not locally. So again, shout out to Louisville Metro Office for Women, U of L Office of Sustainability, Sister Song, Women of Color Reproductive Justice Collective. Of course, I'm completely biased since I advise them, but our United Nations Association Women chapter, which I will add, they're the only chapter in the country. But again, for those that will be watching this later, thank you for sticking with us, and I hope you guys learned a lot. I sure did, and I've been here my whole life. I've learned so much. So continue getting connected with many of the organizations here that were mentioned and that were shouting out. Get engaged. There's so many different ways, like that was shared earlier today. And so just some quick housekeeping. Going back to practicing self-care, the videos will be uploaded on our YouTube channel by the end of next week, because I am taking tomorrow off as my act of self-care. And so, yes, definitely utilize those self-care, and please complete the evaluations. All feedback we will graciously accept. I know we had some tech kinks and issues today, but again, thank you all so much, and a round of applause for being a great engaging audience today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and weekend. Thanks.